You have been deceived. You have been lied to with such precision and persistence that you mistake your chains for jewelry. They whispered in your ear from childhood that if you would only work hard, save faithfully, and serve obediently for 40 long years, freedom would be your reward at 65. But tell me this, if 4 decades of your precious life lead only to a pension too meager to sustain dignity, what name shall we give to such a bargain? What do you call a contract where you surrender your soul and receive only survival in return? Listen to me now, for this truth will either liberate you or leave you forever bound. You were not born to labor until your last breath. You were not born to watch your dreams wither while you trade your very essence for a weekly wage. The world, this merciless, magnificent world, does not bow to the obedient. It bows to the man who recognizes the trap, sees through the illusion, and walks boldly away from the masses who shuffle toward their quiet destruction. That man, that free man, begins his journey here, in this moment, with these words burning in his consciousness. Pay attention, for if you allow this message to pass through your mind without taking root, you may find yourself working until your body fails and dying with nothing but regrets and empty pockets to show for a lifetime of faithfulness to a system that was never designed to reward you. You believe yourself free, don't you? You believe that your daily toil will somehow, someday, pay dividends worthy of the investment. You believe that if you remain loyal, if you save your pennies, if you follow every rule and regulation like a good soldier, your golden years will gleam with the prosperity you've earned. But I speak to you now without apology, without sugarcoating, without the gentle lies that keep men sleeping. If 40 years of your life end in dependency, in fear, in watching the calendar with terror because your money dwindles while your needs remain, then who truly possessed your existence? Who was the real owner of those precious decades you can never reclaim? I have witnessed this tragedy too many times to count. Men who poured their youth, their strength, their brightest years into companies that forgot their names the moment they walked out the door. Men who reached 65 with bodies bent by labor, hands trembling not from age but from anxiety, eyes fixed on calendars and bank statements because the mathematics of survival no longer add up. These men obeyed every instruction, swallowed every disappointment, kept their complaints to themselves. They worked when they were told to work, waited when they were told to wait, hoped when hope was all they had left. And when the waiting finally ended, when retirement arrived like a cruel joke, there was nothing waiting for them but the slow realization that they had been used. I ask you again, and I demand an answer from the depths of your being. Who owns the life of a man who gives it away one paycheck at a time? Who trades his dreams for security that proves to be an illusion? Who dies uncertain, unfree, and unmourned by the world that consumed him? Understand this fundamental truth that will shake the very foundations of everything you've been taught. Slavery did not die with the Emancipation Proclamation. It simply evolved, adapted, put on a suit and tie, and learned to smile. The chains are no longer forged of iron and locked around ankles. They are woven from routine, from debt that never decreases, from expectations so low they insult your potential, from beliefs you never examined because you inherited them from people who were themselves imprisoned. You were told with great conviction that the system works if you work within it. But what they never revealed, what they carefully concealed from your understanding, is that the system was never architected to create your wealth. It was designed with mathematical precision to make you useful to someone else's fortune, to extract your value and channel it upward, to keep you productive enough to serve but never powerful enough to command. I will not soften these words to spare your comfort. I am not here to encourage your delusions or pat your head while you sleepwalk through your one precious life. I am here to awaken you from a slumber so deep you mistake it for consciousness. Because until you see with crystal clarity the truth of your condition, until you recognize the bars of the cage you've been trained to call home, you will never taste freedom. You will smile politely while your years evaporate, calling your surrender responsibility. You will praise the very people who harvest your energy, calling your exploitation employment. You will wait patiently for a retirement that barely covers your rent, calling your poverty security. But here is what transforms everything. This is not a tragedy written in stone by the hand of fate. This is a choice. And because it is a choice, it can be unchosen by any man or woman bold enough to confront reality and demand something better. In the words that follow, I will reveal to you the laws that Carnegie learned while others slept. I will show you precisely how Rockefeller, Schwab, Ford, and Lincoln rose from nothing. Not through luck, not through favor, not through inheritance, but through alignment with eternal principles and obedience to laws that govern all wealth creation. You will discover why work alone, no matter how backbreaking or dedicated, will never set you free. You will understand why retirement is the reward offered to the obedient, not to the free. You will see how schools are carefully designed to produce employees, never owners. You will recognize why your job is not a plan for prosperity, but merely a placeholder, keeping you busy while life passes by. You will learn how the wealthy obey invisible spiritual laws that poor men ignore in their ignorance. You will discover how your daily habits either forge the prison you mistake for life or build the foundation of unshakable freedom. You will understand why waiting is the enemy of every dream, and why movement is the only cure for a life of quiet desperation. And you will see how the man who refuses to serve inevitably becomes the one who commands. You will answer these questions that burn in every honest heart. What is my life actually producing? Have I confused obedience with purpose? Why have I delayed building the wealth that should be mine? What must I stop doing this very day? What must I repeat every morning until my freedom becomes as real as the air I breathe? If you are honest, truly, brutally honest with yourself, you will realize that you are not free. Not yet. Your chains may be comfortable. Your cage may be decorated with small pleasures. But you are not the master of your destiny. But if you stay with me, if you absorb every word I speak, if you repeat what I teach and apply it with the precision of a surgeon, you will no longer work until death claims you. You will build a life that works tirelessly for you, even while you sleep. Let me say this with the clarity of lightning cutting through storm clouds. The chains that bind you are forged in your habits. The key that will unlock them rests in your mind. And this is your final warning before time makes the decision for you, before age robs you of the energy to change, before circumstances solidify into permanent defeat. Speak these words aloud now, with the power of absolute conviction. I refuse to work my life away and die poor. I was born to own, not to obey. Now let us move forward into the first law that will transform your understanding forever. Work alone will never make you free. You have been programmed to worship labor as if it were a god. You have been taught to believe that hard work is the universal answer to every problem, the magic key that unlocks every door. They told you that if you simply clock in faithfully, stay late when asked, serve with dedication, keep your head down and your complaints to yourself, You will eventually rise to a position worthy of your sacrifice. But I declare to you, with the authority of one who has studied both failure and fortune, work alone will never make you free. You can sell your strength, your time, your life force to another man's vision for 40 years and still die without leaving so much as a ripple on the surface of history. You can give your finest decades, your most creative years, your peak energy to a factory, to a corporation, to an office, and still retire into scarcity so deep you count coins with the same fear others reserve for counting their remaining heartbeats. I do not speak against honest labor. Hear me clearly on this point. I speak against misplaced loyalty, against the tragic error of confusing motion with progress, against the deadly mistake of selling your irreplaceable life force without ever building anything permanent in return. The man who works without thinking is no better than a machine that runs until it breaks. The man who works without definite purpose is no freer than a beast of burden, regardless of how impressive his paycheck appears or how comfortable his working conditions seem. The man who works without ownership, without building something that generates income independent of his daily effort, remains a servant, no matter how expensive his suit or how respected his position. He may wear the costume of success, but he lives under the constant threat of economic slavery. Let me teach you the difference between labor and wealth, between effort and abundance. Labor is the effort of the physical body, the expenditure of time and energy in service to another's design. Wealth is the command of organized thought, the ability to create systems that work without your constant presence. Most men sell their hours for another man's vision because they never grasped this fundamental law. Money obeys thought, not time. Money follows systems, not sweat. A man can spend his entire lifetime in exhausting toil and be passed by the thinker who understood how to build leverage, how to create something that multiplies his efforts. One man digs holes until his back breaks. The other designs the machine that digs 1,000 holes while he plans his next venture. Which one do you think accumulates wealth? The poor man always points to his effort with pride and confusion. He says, "I worked harder than anyone. I showed up every day, never missed a deadline, never complained." But he fails to understand that the reward never goes to the one who merely shows up, no matter how faithfully. The reward flows to the one who creates leverage, who builds systems, who uses his mind to organize resources and people in ways that generate value long after the initial work is complete. Andrew Carnegie understood this principle and lived by it. He worked once with his mind and profited forever with the systems he created. He didn't spend his life swinging hammers in steel mills, though he understood steel better than most. Instead, he designed an empire, constructed a system of processes, people, and materials that multiplied wealth while he focused on expansion and refinement. He used his mental faculties to organize men of skill and vision into a coordinated force that produced more than any individual could accomplish alone. From that moment of understanding forward, his ideas earned more in a single year than most men could accumulate through decades of physical labor. That is the secret the hourly worker never learns, the truth that escapes the man who trades time for money. The mind is the only true factory of fortune. Yet you have been trained to think differently, haven't you? From your earliest years, you were conditioned to associate hours with income, to believe that your value as a human being is measured by how much time you're willing to sacrifice on the altar of someone else's ambition. But time is a poor man's currency, the desperate currency of those who have nothing else to sell. Time is the one asset you can never earn back, never recover, never replace. And every moment you trade it for someone else's dream, you are selling the only thing that is truly, irreplaceably yours. The truth that will either liberate or devastate you is this: men were trained to work, not to think. They were trained to follow instructions, not to create blueprints. They were trained to serve systems designed by others, not to build systems that serve them. And now they wonder, in their quiet moments of desperation, why they can labor for a lifetime and have nothing substantial to show for their decades of dedication. It is not injustice in the cosmic sense, it is programming, and it must be broken before it breaks you. You cannot continue believing that more effort will somehow translate into more freedom. It will not. What creates freedom is ownership. Ownership of your thoughts. Ownership of income-generating systems. Ownership of a definite purpose that guides every decision you make. Until you stop working blindly and start working with definiteness, with clear intention and systematic planning, you will always trade your irreplaceable life for crumbs from tables you will never be invited to sit at. Listen to me with your whole being. A man who never escapes hourly labor dies a servant, regardless of his title or salary. It matters not whether you wear a tailored suit or work clothes, whether you push papers or push wheelbarrows. If you trade your time for pay without a greater plan, without building something permanent, you are merely a more expensive slave, better dressed perhaps, but still owned by the very system you serve. But there is a way out. There is always a way out for the man who refuses to accept defeat. There is a new law to follow, a new identity to forge, a new path to walk. And it begins here, in this moment, with this declaration. Speak with the power that moves mountains. I do not sell my life for crumbs. My work builds ownership, not dependence. This is the beginning of your liberation from the prison of hourly thinking. But if you stop here, if you allow the old patterns to reclaim your mind, you will fall back into the same familiar cell. Only now, you'll be conscious of the bars. So let us move forward without hesitation. The retirement lie represents a slave's reward, disguised as a prize. You were told to wait, weren't you? Wait until your 60s, until your body has given its best years to someone else's profit. Work while your energy is high, while your dreams are vivid, while your potential burns brightest. Save a little here and there. Sacrifice today's possibilities so you can supposedly enjoy tomorrow's freedom. And when tomorrow finally arrives, you discover you're tired, you're broke, and your freedom has become nothing but a memory of something you never actually experienced. Retirement is the lie they sold to slaves to prevent revolution, to keep them working without question until they became too weak to rebel. The truth they carefully concealed from you is this stark reality. You are not saving for freedom. You are saving to delay complete collapse. The entire structure was built on the assumption that you would obey long enough to become too exhausted and too old to question the fundamental unfairness of the bargain. They calculated precisely how much security to provide to keep you from running, how much hope to offer to prevent you from asking dangerous questions, and how much fear to maintain to keep you working regardless of how you felt about it. I say this without apology or gentle cushioning. The man who waits until 65 to begin truly living was never really alive to begin with. Do you think retirement is a reward? Look again. It is a leash disguised as freedom. They call it a pension, but I call it permission to survive barely, to exist on the margins while those who understood the game live abundantly. You were never meant to reach your final years with dread filling your chest and a calculator as your constant companion, watching your savings dwindle while your needs remain constant or increase. That is not freedom. That is a sentence imposed upon those whose only crime was trusting a system that was never architected to set them free. Let me show you how real wealth operates. Not the fantasy sold to the masses, but the formula followed by those who understand. True wealth is never saved in the traditional sense. It is never rationed like wartime supplies, never handed out at the end of a long life like a consolation prize for obedience. True wealth is built through the creation of value, through the application of organized thought, through the courage to step away from the assembly line mentality that keeps most people trapped. Study the life of Henry Ford, and you will see this principle in action. He didn't save his way into millions through penny pinching and sacrifice. He didn't work for someone else until he was 65, hoping for a comfortable retirement. Instead, he created something that multiplied without requiring his constant presence. He built systems that generated wealth while he slept, while he planned, while he expanded his vision into new territories. He saw opportunity where others saw only jobs, possibilities where others saw only paychecks. And because of that fundamental difference in thinking, his wealth worked tirelessly on his behalf, growing and compounding and creating more opportunities for growth. That is the difference between the builder and the waiter, between the creator and the consumer. The builder lives fully in the present while constructing his future. The waiter postpones life until it's too late to truly live. You were taught that delayed gratification is the master key to success, the virtue that separates the wise from the foolish. But the truth is that delayed vision is spiritual death. If your entire existence is structured around a reward that only comes when you're too tired to enjoy it, when your health is compromised and your energy depleted, then you have been deceived by those who profit from your delay. You want to know the unvarnished truth about retirement. Here it is, spoken plainly. Most men never reach it. They die before they ever escape the wheel, working until their bodies fail or their minds give out. And the fortunate few who do survive to see their supposed golden years arrive with bodies weakened by decades of stress, wallets lighter than their dreams demanded, and souls that have forgotten what it means to move with genuine purpose and passion. It doesn't have to end this way, but only if you're willing to shatter the lie today, in this moment, before another year passes in service to someone else's wealth. Declare with the power that changes destiny. I do not wait for freedom. I build it now. I reject the retirement trap completely. My wealth begins this very day. The system rewards silence, compliance, and blind faith in a future that may never come. Schools create obedient workers, not wealthy individuals. You were trained, not educated. You were conditioned for compliance, not liberated for creativity. From the very first day you walked through those institutional doors, they were not preparing you to command your own destiny. They were systematically preparing you to serve someone else's vision with efficiency and without question. The educational system does not produce creators, innovators, or independent thinkers. It produces components, human cogs designed to fit smoothly into an economic machine built by others, for others. Think carefully about what they actually taught you during those formative years. Sit down when told. Be quiet when instructed. Memorize without questioning. Repeat without understanding. Obey without thinking. Raise your hand for permission to speak your own thoughts. Wait your turn even when you know the answer. Learn the rules that others created. Follow instructions that others wrote. Stay in line both literally and metaphorically. Now, I want you to examine this programming honestly. How many of those lessons appear in the lives of the truly wealthy? None. Because no man ever became genuinely free by reflexively obeying everyone else's commands, by seeking permission for every action, by waiting for approval before moving forward with his vision. The men who rose above the masses Carnegie, Edison, Ford, they broke the line. They rejected the predetermined path laid before them by institutional thinking. They thought independently, imagined possibilities others couldn't see, questioned assumptions others accepted without examination, and moved forward with unshakable belief rather than timid compliance. Consider the story of Thomas Edison, thrown out of school because teachers declared him unteachable, deficient, incapable of learning through their methods. They told his mother with great authority that he would never amount to anything, that his mind was somehow flawed beyond repair. And what did this supposedly deficient child do? He proceeded to illuminate the entire world, to invent devices that transformed human existence, to create innovations that still benefit billions of people more than a century later. He accomplished this not because of formal schooling, but through belief in his own potential, through relentless persistence, through vision that refused to be dimmed by others' limitations. Here lies the great irony that reveals the fundamental flaw in institutional education. The same system that rejected Edison now teaches about his achievements. They celebrate his name in textbooks while systematically punishing the very spirit of independent thinking that made his success possible. Schools do not teach the creation of wealth. They cannot, because most educators have never created wealth themselves. They do not teach the power of imagination to transform reality. They do not teach the application of faith to achieve what seems impossible. Instead, they teach order without purpose, comfort without growth, dependency without strength. They teach you to memorize scripts written by others rather than developing the confidence and skill to write your own story. If you want to become genuinely prosperous, you must systematically unlearn the mental programming that has kept you poor. You must cast out the false beliefs planted in your consciousness by people who were never free themselves, who accepted their limitations and tried to pass them on to you. You must question everything you were taught about success, about wealth, about what's possible for someone like you. Ask yourself these penetrating questions. Why was I taught to fear mistakes more than mediocrity? Why was I never instructed in the practical methods of building multiple income streams? Why did no one speak of developing a definite chief aim that could guide all my decisions? Why were the fundamental laws of wealth accumulation, faith, autosuggestion, organized planning, the power of the mastermind, completely absent from every curriculum I encountered? I will tell you exactly why. Because obedient workers do not need to understand wealth creation. They only need to possess enough knowledge to perform their assigned tasks and enough income to survive and continue showing up. They need to be productive enough to generate profit for others, but not educated enough to claim that profit for themselves. This is not an attack on genuine learning or the pursuit of knowledge. It is a declaration of war against systematic indoctrination that masquerades as education. True education liberates the mind, expands possibilities, and teaches individuals to think independently and create value. But when education only trains the hands while leaving the mind in chains, it becomes a sophisticated prison system that produces compliant workers rather than free thinkers. If you want to rise above the masses, you must retrain your thinking completely. You must study what genuinely free and prosperous people study. You must speak like the person you intend to become, not like the person you were conditioned to remain. You must ask questions they never permitted you to ask. Challenge assumptions they insisted you accept without examination. Who benefits most from your unquestioning obedience? Who profits when you delay taking action on your dreams? Who taught you that your value as a human being should be measured in grades, hours worked, or approval from authority figures? The moment you begin questioning these foundational assumptions, you begin building your escape route from mental slavery. You were not born to follow instructions written by others. You were born to create instructions that others will eagerly follow. You were not designed for desks and bells and artificial schedules. You were designed for vision and leadership and the command of your own destiny. If you are willing to reclaim your mind from those who colonized it, you will reclaim your life from those who would use it for their purposes rather than yours. Declare with absolute certainty, I think for myself. I question every path I was given. I was not born to follow instructions. I was born to give them. Your job is a temporary solution, not a permanent strategy for building the life you truly want. Let us be brutally honest now, more honest than you've perhaps ever been about your current situation. A job is not freedom, regardless of how it may feel on payday. A job is not wealth, despite what your paycheck might suggest. A job is not a plan for long-term prosperity. It is merely a placeholder for someone who has not yet taken complete command of their own economic destiny. You were systematically taught to believe that employment represents security, that trading your time for someone else's money is the foundation of a stable life. But I tell you plainly, it is only a cage with comfortable walls, a prison with pleasant amenities that keeps you too comfortable to escape, but never comfortable enough to truly prosper. The world trained you to seek employment rather than purpose, to search for paychecks rather than developing comprehensive plans for wealth building, to settle for mere survival rather than constructing a life that commands respect and generates genuine abundance. Understand this fundamental truth. A job may solve your immediate financial needs, but it cannot and will not fulfill your ultimate potential or calling. If you do not possess a definite chief aim, a clear, written, emotionally charged vision for your life, then your job becomes a beautifully decorated coffin, containing the slow decay of possibilities that were meant to flourish. You wake up when the alarm demands. You travel to a location someone else chose. You perform tasks someone else designed. You follow schedules someone else created. You pursue goals someone else established. And somewhere in this cycle of controlled repetition, you forget that you were meant for infinitely more than this comfortable servitude. Do I advocate abandoning your job immediately without preparation? Absolutely not, but I insist that you begin using your job the way genuinely free people use tools, not as a master to be served, but as a means to an end, as leverage to fund your ultimate freedom, not as a replacement for the vision and planning that creates real wealth. Consider the inspiring example of Edwin C. Barnes, who understood this principle perfectly. He did not despise honest work. He worked diligently as a clerk, but he maintained one burning vision that consumed his thoughts and guided his actions: to become a business partner with the great Thomas Edison. He used his position strategically, not just to earn wages, but to position himself in the right environment, to prove his value, to demonstrate his commitment to something greater than a paycheck. He worked with definite purpose rather than vague hope, with strategic intention rather than mere financial necessity. He leveraged his job to gain access to the room where decisions were made, and once in that room, he proved himself so valuable that he transcended employment forever. This is how genuine wealth is constructed, not through endless repetition of the same tasks, but through intention, definiteness, and strategic thinking that transforms temporary situations into permanent advancement. The tragedy of modern existence is not that people work hard. Many people throughout history have worked incredibly hard. The tragedy is that they work hard without direction, without clear purpose, without building anything permanent that could eventually replace their daily labor. They become slaves, not because of physical chains, but because of mental habits that keep them trapped in cycles they mistake for progress. A job becomes noble and worthwhile only when it funds your journey toward genuine freedom. If you find yourself still working primarily to stay alive rather than to build lasting wealth, you have not yet achieved true freedom. If you catch yourself hoping for raises instead of systematically building multiple income streams, you remain in economic bondage. If your days are consumed entirely with tasks that build someone else's empire while your own dreams remain dormant and undeveloped, you are not yet the master of your destiny. But transformation is possible. The door to financial freedom remains open for those bold enough to walk through it. You must stop kneeling before the illusion of job security and start standing firmly for the reality of ownership, of systems that generate income whether you show up or not, of wealth that grows while you sleep. Do not spend your entire existence renting your time to others like some human taxi service. Own your days. Command your income streams. Use your current employment strategically, rather than allowing it to use you. Speak these words with unwavering conviction. My job is not my identity, it is my tool. I use my employment to build genuine freedom, not to replace it. The wealthy understand and obey spiritual laws that govern all prosperity. Let the masses continue chasing money with their hands while remaining poor in their thinking. Let them scramble desperately for financial crumbs, trading precious hours for insufficient coins, selling their birthright of unlimited potential for the temporary security of wages that barely sustain life. But you, I am speaking directly to your awakening consciousness. You must understand what they have never grasped. The laws that create sustainable wealth are spiritual in nature before they ever manifest in material form. You cannot rise externally until you first rise internally, in the realm of thought and belief. You cannot earn what you do not believe you deserve. You cannot command resources until you learn to obey the invisible principles that govern all true prosperity. These are not laws written by human legislators or enforced by government institutions. These are laws written into the fundamental structure of the universe itself, as reliable as gravity, as predictable as sunrise, as powerful as any force in creation. There exists a divine principle behind every lasting fortune. And if you violate that principle through ignorance or rebellion, the money you accumulate will eventually destroy you rather than serve you. You have been taught that money comes from effort, from physical labor, from time invested in someone else's enterprise. But I tell you with absolute certainty, money comes from alignment. Alignment of your thoughts with your beliefs with your words with your actions, and your actions with your definite plan. This is law. This is cosmic order. This is the source of all legitimate power in human affairs. Examine the lives of those who built lasting wealth, not those who inherited it or stumbled into it temporarily, but those who constructed it systematically from nothing. John D. Rockefeller tithed not from superstition or social pressure, but from deep understanding of spiritual principle. He recognized that money represented a stewardship, a responsibility that demanded integrity and service to others. He structured his entire business empire not merely on profit maximization, but on internal discipline and adherence to principles that transcended immediate gain. Andrew Carnegie surrounded himself deliberately with minds superior to his own, not because he lacked intelligence or confidence, but because he understood and applied the mastermind principle. He knew that wealth is attracted to unity of purpose, to definiteness of aim, to mental harmony among individuals committed to a common vision that serves others while enriching all participants. Thomas Edison repeated his vision of electric illumination to himself thousands of times, long before the world believed such a thing was possible, long before he had developed the technology to make it reality. He walked with absolute certainty while others mocked his dreams. He obeyed the invisible law of faith. Belief applied persistently to a definite aim until that belief transforms itself into physical reality. Do you begin to understand? It is not business acumen alone that creates lasting wealth. It is belief made manifest through consistent action. It is spiritual alignment with principles that most people never learn because they are too busy chasing effects rather than understanding causes. Faith, properly understood, is not religious sentiment. It is power in its purest form. Faith is the ability to see the invisible as though it were already visible, to hold your vision with such intensity and consistency that the material world must eventually conform to match it. Faith is the bridge between thought and reality, between desire and manifestation. Consider the transformative power of autosuggestion, which the uninformed dismiss as foolish repetition or positive thinking nonsense. But those who understand wealth recognize it as mental programming of the highest order. They know that the subconscious mind must be deliberately instructed, systematically programmed with clear directions about what to create and how to behave. What you speak to yourself with genuine emotion becomes instruction to the most powerful force in your individual universe. The subconscious mind executes whatever instructions it receives most frequently and emotionally. If you wake each morning speaking words of defeat, delay, weakness, and limitation, you have issued clear orders for poverty to manifest in your experience. If you rise each day and declare with conviction your belief in your wealth, your power, your inevitable success, you have issued equally clear orders for victory to unfold through your actions and circumstances. Do you imagine that riches flow to the person who moves through life without a clear map, without definite destination, without organized plans? Never. Wealth responds like a disciplined general. It follows organized strategy, systematic effort, and definite leadership. Write your major aim in clear, specific terms. Develop step-by-step plans for its achievement. Review these plans daily. Adjust them based on results. Attack your objectives again with renewed intelligence and energy. All of these principles, unwavering faith, definite purpose, systematic repetition, organized planning, are fundamentally spiritual in nature before they ever produce a single dollar of income. This explains why a poor man may work harder physically than a wealthy man, yet remain trapped in poverty year after year. The poor man works with his muscles while remaining unconscious of mental laws. The wealthy man works with his mind according to principles that multiply effort and compound results. One sweats without intelligent direction, exhausting himself in random activity. The other thinks with precision, applying mental energy according to laws that guarantee progress toward definite objectives. The man who learns to think in harmony with spiritual law will earn more in a single year than the other could accumulate through a lifetime of uninformed labor. You must master these eternal laws. The law of definite chief aim that focuses all your energy like sunlight through a magnifying glass. The law of faith applied through autosuggestion that programs your subconscious mind for success rather than failure. The law of organized planning that transforms desires into step-by-step strategies. The law of the mastermind that multiplies individual intelligence through harmonious cooperation. The law of cosmic habit force that rewards consistent rhythm rather than sporadic effort. These are not opinions or theories. They are eternal principles as dependable as mathematics. Violate them, and life will break you regardless of your intentions. Obey them with understanding and persistence, and the world will yield to your organized effort as surely as water yields to persistent pressure. You must learn to live by internal command rather than external reaction. You must rise before the world awakens to program your mind. You must speak your aims aloud with conviction. You must write clear instructions to your subconscious. You must review your plans and build productive rhythm into every hour of your existence. This is not spiritual fantasy. This is the foundation upon which every lasting empire has been constructed. Riches are not the reward of effort alone. They are the reward of intelligent obedience to laws that govern all manifestation. Your habits create either financial slavery or financial freedom. There is no neutral ground. If you would understand the true nature of modern slavery, stop looking for physical chains and start examining daily routines. No person wears shackles on their wrists in this age of sophisticated control. Instead, they wear invisible bonds forged from repetitive habits that lead nowhere, from routines that serve others' purposes rather than their own dreams. Slavery in our time is not enforced through physical violence or legal ownership. It is maintained through familiarity, through the comfort of repetition, through rhythm that has gone wrong and leads the masses in circles rather than toward genuine progress. You rise at the same time, consume the same mental diet, perform the same tasks, return to the same entertainment, and collapse into the same bed, calling this existence life. But I challenge you to examine honestly. Is this truly your life? Or is it a life designed for you by others who profit from your predictable compliance? The modern slave is not bound by a human master with a whip. He is bound by a cycle of unconscious repetition that, unless deliberately interrupted, will carry him to his grave, with nothing to show for his years except obedience and exhaustion. The chains that matter are invisible. They exist in your habitual patterns of thought and action. What time do you wake? And is that time chosen by your ambition or by your employer's requirements? What thoughts enter your consciousness before the world begins making demands? And do those thoughts serve your vision or scatter your mental energy? Do you begin each day with clear instructions to your subconscious mind? Or do you immediately check devices that fill your head with other people's priorities and problems? When your body rises but your purpose remains asleep, you have already surrendered your day to forces outside your control. You have chosen to be a reactor rather than a creator, a responder rather than an initiator. You cannot live like an ordinary person and expect extraordinary results. You cannot drift casually into fortune any more than you can wander accidentally into mastery of any skill. You must command your life with the same precision a general commands his army. And command requires rhythm, but it must be the right rhythm, consciously chosen and consistently maintained. Observe the habits of poverty, and you will see why most people never escape financial struggle. The average person wakes late, already behind schedule and reactive to circumstances. He eats thoughtlessly, consuming whatever is convenient rather than what serves his energy and clarity. He consumes information and entertainment without producing anything of value in return. He reacts to problems without thinking strategically about solutions. He repeats the same confused patterns day after day, year after year, wondering why his results never improve. This represents the habit system that leads inevitably to financial slavery. It doesn't feel oppressive. That's precisely what makes it so dangerous. It feels normal, comfortable, acceptable, because it matches what everyone around you is doing. But slavery that has become widespread is still slavery. The only difference is that modern slaves don't sing songs of sorrow. They simply keep working and hoping and waiting for rewards that never materialize. Now contrast this with the daily patterns of those who have built lasting wealth, not those who inherited money, but those who created it through systematic application of success principles. Andrew Carnegie rose before dawn, not because someone forced him, but because he understood the value of commanding his day rather than allowing his day to command him. He didn't wait for instructions from superiors. He issued instructions to subordinates and systems he had created. He planned each day the night before, ensuring that every hour served his definite major purpose. He spoke his aims aloud to reinforce them in his consciousness. He wrote correspondence that advanced his business interests. He reviewed his progress daily, measuring results against objectives and adjusting strategies based on feedback from reality. Charles Schwab didn't stumble accidentally into multimillionaire status. He achieved extraordinary wealth because he mastered the principle of organized rhythm. Every hour had a designated purpose. Every morning was planned in advance. Every evening included measurement and evaluation of progress. He understood a law that poor people never learn. If you cannot measure something accurately, you cannot improve it systematically. Thomas Edison tested thousands of materials and methods in his pursuit of electric illumination, not because he was lucky or naturally gifted, but because he had structured his life around systematic experimentation and persistent effort. His repetition was not random activity. It was rhythmic, aimed, and guided by clear objectives that he reviewed and refined daily. Ask yourself honestly, what is your current daily rhythm producing in terms of measurable progress toward your major goals? Do you consume information like a wealthy person, seeking knowledge that builds your capability and advances your definite purpose? Or do you consume distractions that scatter your mental energy and waste your precious time? Do you speak like a person destined for wealth? Are your words definite, clear, aimed toward specific objectives, and consistently positive? Or are they vague, filled with doubt, and drifting toward complaint about circumstances you have the power to change? Do you move through your day like someone building an empire? Is your schedule mapped strategically? Is your progress tracked systematically? Do your actions serve a coherent vision, or do they simply respond to the immediate demands and distractions that others place before you? Do you think like a person who expects to become wealthy? Have you developed the habit of directed, purposeful thinking, or do you merely react mentally to whatever noise surrounds you in your environment? You must audit your habits with the precision of an accountant, because your habits are creating your destiny, whether you realize it or not. Here is the daily rhythm that builds wealth rather than poverty. Morning command. Rise before the world begins making demands on your attention. Speak your definite chief aim aloud with conviction and emotion. Read your written plan for the day, ensuring every major activity serves your ultimate objective. Repeat your wealth-building affirmations with the intensity that programs your subconscious mind for success rather than failure. Midday alignment. Review your progress against your plan, speaking aloud your commitment to stay on target. Declare that your aim remains fixed and your pace stays strong. Correct any drift from your objectives with immediate, focused action that puts you back on track. Evening review. Measure precisely what you accomplished compared to what you intended. Write down new lessons learned from the day's experiences. Repeat your major aim aloud before sleep, ensuring it's the last conscious thought in your mind. Visualize your success as already accomplished, feeling the emotions of achievement before achievement arrives. Repeat this structure daily without fail, without excuse, without negotiation. This rhythm alone will begin reprogramming your subconscious mind for wealth rather than poverty. Your subconscious is the invisible builder of all your results, and it must be programmed deliberately, or it will be programmed accidentally by whatever influences dominate your environment. Most people fail not because they lack intelligence or opportunity, but because they lack rhythm. The law of cosmic habit force operates whether you understand it or not. It means that every thought repeated becomes a mental command. Every action repeated becomes an automatic pattern. Every pattern reinforced becomes part of your identity. And every identity consistently maintained manifests results that perfectly match it. If you want wealth, you must form the habits that create wealth. If you want power over your circumstances, you must develop the daily rhythm of powerful people. If you want freedom from financial anxiety, you must practice the disciplines that free people practice consistently. Do not claim you are too old to change or that it's too late to matter. The moment you take command of your daily rhythm, your life begins again with new possibilities and renewed power. Repeat these truth-building affirmations every day. My habits build freedom or chains. I choose freedom. Each day I command myself into greater power. Now write down your ideal daily rhythm. Practice it tomorrow and the next day and the next. Do not skip. Do not drift. Do not delay. Do not negotiate with weakness. You are either forming habits that lead to freedom or wearing chains that lead to slavery. There is no neutral ground. If you wait, you will serve those who did not wait. There exists a law that few people possess the courage to confront, a principle more sobering than failure and more costly than ignorance. He who waits to act serves the man who acts without waiting. The world has never rewarded hesitation. It has never crowned the cautious. It has never surrendered its treasures to those who delayed action until conditions became perfect. Look around you at every industry, every institution, every corner of human society, and you will discover the same immutable truth, operating with mathematical precision. The people who rule, who command resources, who shape the direction of events, are not the ones who waited for permission to begin. They are not the ones who sought guarantees before moving forward. They are the ones who decided while others debated, who acted while others analyzed, who moved boldly forward while others remained paralyzed by the fear of making mistakes. Wealth does not flow to the most brilliant minds, though intelligence certainly helps. It does not flow to the most deserving people, though character matters greatly. It does not flow to those who hope most fervently or wish most desperately. Wealth flows to those who move decisively, who make decisions under pressure, who claim their portion while others are still calculating the risks and counting the potential costs of failure. Do you believe life will grant you unlimited time to make your decisions? Do you imagine opportunity will wait patiently while you gather more information, seek more advice, or build more confidence? Time waits for no one, and the person who waits becomes the employee of the one who didn't wait, the customer of the one who didn't wait, the tenant of the one who didn't wait. Abraham Lincoln, a man of profound principle but even greater decisiveness, understood this law and applied it when the stakes could not have been higher. During the darkest hours of his presidency, when the nation was tearing itself apart, he did not convene endless committees or seek universal approval for his actions. He moved with speed and determination. When the Union fractured and civil war became inevitable, he acted decisively rather than hoping the crisis would resolve itself. When the outcome remained uncertain and critics attacked him from every direction, he still advanced toward his objectives. He issued the Emancipation Proclamation not when it was politically safe or universally popular, but when it was morally necessary and strategically advantageous. He didn't wait for perfect clarity about consequences. He created clarity through decisive action and unwavering commitment to principle. That is what true leaders do in every area of life. That is what genuinely free people do consistently. They act with available information and adjust their course based on results, rather than waiting for guarantees that never come. Most people do not fail because they made wrong decisions. They fail because they made no real decisions at all. They wait for the economy to improve, for perfect plans to emerge from their analysis, for fear to disappear magically, for someone else to show them exactly what steps to take. But understand this fundamental truth. Waiting is not neutral ground. Every day you delay action, another person acts. Another person builds systems. Another person claims the territory you forfeited through hesitation. When your years have passed and your energy has diminished, you will find yourself working for someone who was no more qualified than you, no more intelligent than you, no more deserving than you, but who moved while you waited, who decided while you deliberated, who built while you planned endlessly without executing. I must speak this truth plainly, even though it may disturb your comfort. Your delays will become your chains. Every postponement strengthens the habit of postponement. Every excuse for inaction makes the next excuse easier to accept. Every day spent waiting for perfect conditions is another day surrendering your dreams to someone who understands that perfect conditions never exist. I know the voice that whispers rationalizations in your mind. I'm still researching the possibilities. I'm just not quite ready to begin. I'm being patient and careful. Let me share something the wealthy understand that the poor consistently ignore. Patience becomes a virtue only when combined with intelligent action. Patience without movement is paralysis. And paralysis, no matter how comfortable or reasonable it appears, is death in disguise. Study the lives of those who built lasting wealth, and you will not find a single example of someone who waited for ideal circumstances. Carnegie started in poverty, but he acted immediately when opportunities appeared. He moved to organize steel production when others feared the risks of expansion. Ford dared to mass-produce automobiles when others mocked the idea as impractical fantasy. Edison declared his inventions publicly before they worked consistently, because he understood a law that fear-driven people never grasp. Movement precedes manifestation. Action creates the very conditions that make success possible. What exactly are you waiting for? Are you waiting for the economy to improve while someone else is creating their own economic opportunities? Are you waiting to acquire more knowledge while someone with less education is building more wealth through systematic action? Are you waiting to feel more courageous while courage is actually created through decisions made in spite of fear? The tragedy is not that people fail. Failure is often education in disguise, feedback that leads to better strategies. The tragedy is that they delay and hesitate and procrastinate until the very life they dreamed of living is now owned and controlled by someone else who acted while they waited. I warn you as someone who has studied both failure and fortune extensively. If you wait, you will eventually work for the person who didn't wait. If you hesitate to build your own wealth, your children will serve the children of those who built wealth while you hesitated. If you pause when you should advance, your dreams will be constructed and owned by people who moved when you paused, and your name will not appear anywhere on the blueprints. You may believe you are being cautious and responsible, but the fundamental law of this world rewards movement over meditation, action over analysis, building over waiting. Those who do not move forward are inevitably pushed backward by those who understand that motion is life and hesitation is surrender. I do not speak this way to frighten you into hasty action, but to awaken you to reality before time makes these decisions permanent. The opportunity exists now. The door remains open now. But doors do not stay open forever, and opportunities do not wait indefinitely for people to overcome their hesitation. Speak these words and let them reshape your identity. I act while others wait. My speed creates my freedom. I do not let fear slow my progress, doubt weaken my voice, or delay turn my life into a monument to what could have been. Move, decide, build. The time is now. The man who refuses to serve becomes the one who commands. Let us bring every law, every principle, every truth to its ultimate conclusion, the complete transformation of who you are at the deepest level. For until you fundamentally alter your identity, no change in your habits, no increase in your income, no improvement in your circumstances will create lasting transformation. The world does not ultimately obey those who perform tasks or follow instructions. It obeys those who command with authority born from self-mastery. No person can truly command external circumstances until he first learns to command himself. I do not speak of service to others, for there is profound honor in building value, contributing to human progress, and serving purposes greater than personal gain. I speak of refusing servitude to fear, to limiting routines, to wages that barely sustain life, to mental chains forged by those who profit from your acceptance of limitation. The person who wakes each morning only to serve someone else's vision, who never writes down his own definite aims, who waits for instructions rather than issuing them, who drowns in tasks that serve no coherent purpose, that person is not free. That person is not fulfilled. That person is not living as the master of his destiny. But here is what transforms everything. That person can be completely transformed. He must transform, or he will become exactly what this system designed him to become: a worker until death, a consumer until bankruptcy, a servant until he is forgotten by the very forces that used him. The turning point, the precise line between labor and leadership, between employment and ownership, is self-command. Not emotion, which changes like weather. Not wishful thinking, which accomplishes nothing. Not even tremendous effort, which can be misdirected. Command, the ability to direct your thoughts, control your actions, and shape your destiny through systematic application of proven principles. A person who masters himself no longer needs to obey the dictates of the world. The world begins to adjust itself to accommodate his vision and serve his definite purpose. Markets shift to create space for his unique value. People reorganize themselves to align with his leadership. Money flows toward his systematically planned objectives because he moves toward those objectives with unwavering persistence and intelligent strategy. You can die as a laborer, forgotten and financially struggling, or you can rise as a leader who builds something lasting and valuable. The difference is not inherited money, family connections, or formal education. The difference lies in your thoughts, your daily disciplines, and your decisions about what you will accept and what you will demand from life. You were not born merely to work until your body fails. You were born to build systems, organizations, and value that outlasts your physical presence on Earth. You were not born to receive and follow instructions written by others. You were born to create blueprints that others will eagerly implement. You were not born to comply with limitations imposed by people who accepted defeat for themselves. You were born to create new possibilities and inspire others to reach higher than they dreamed possible. If you are still breathing, still capable of understanding these words, it means transformation remains possible. But understand clearly, this is the final gate. You must walk through it or spend the rest of your life looking back with regret at what you could have accomplished if you had found the courage to act. What must you do to cross this threshold permanently? First, write your definite chief aim with crystal clarity. Not tomorrow when you feel more prepared, but right now while this conviction burns in your consciousness. Decide precisely who you are becoming, what you demand from life, and how you will serve others through the fulfillment of your own purposes. Make your aim clear, bold, and written in language that inspires you to immediate action. Second, build daily command over your thoughts, words, and actions. Do not rely on motivation, which comes and goes like tide. Build your transformation on repetition, which creates permanent change through the accumulation of small, consistent improvements. Every morning, read your definite aim aloud with conviction. Every evening, speak your belief in your inevitable wealth, your growing power, and your expanding identity as someone who commands rather than merely complies. Third, systematically build multiple streams of income that reduce and eventually eliminate your dependence on any single employer or source of money. A person who depends entirely on one income stream remains a servant regardless of his salary or job title. Create systems that generate value. Use your intelligence to solve problems that people will pay to have solved. Let your current employment fund your transition to ownership, but never mistake employment for your ultimate destination. If you doubt that these principles work when applied consistently, let me remind you that I have walked this path myself. I began as the son of a poor coal miner in the hills of Virginia, with no inheritance, no powerful connections, no financial advantages. But I possessed something more valuable than money: a voice, an awakening mind, and an unshakable decision that I would no longer serve the fear of poverty, the chains of ignorance, or the limitations passed down by people who had accepted defeat as permanent. I studied intensively the thinking patterns of the wealthy, not the surface appearance of their success, but the invisible mental and spiritual roots from which their prosperity grew. I analyzed Carnegie, Ford, Rockefeller, Edison, and hundreds of others, discovering that every one of them obeyed laws that most people never learn, because they are too busy envying results rather than studying causes. They mastered their own thinking. They made definite decisions about their futures. They acted persistently, despite obstacles and criticism. They repeated success principles until those principles became automatic responses. And through this systematic approach to self-development, they became impossible for the world to ignore. By learning to master my thoughts rather than being controlled by them, I transcended what the world expected from someone with my background. I advised millionaires because I understood the principles that created their wealth. I built a legacy of ideas that continues to transform lives decades after I shared them. I created systems of thought that turn ordinary people into extraordinary achievers. Everything I accomplished, you can accomplish by applying the same laws. But your transformation begins now, in this moment, with your refusal to accept limitation as permanent. Refuse to live as if you are powerless when you possess unlimited potential. Refuse to wake up each morning without clear aims to guide your actions. Refuse to sell your irreplaceable time for amounts that insult your possibilities. Refuse to think small thoughts. Move with hesitant steps, or act from weakness rather than strength. Refuse to die without building something the world cannot erase from memory. You are not here to serve fear, to obey mediocrity, or to accept the limitations that others have placed on their own lives. You are here to command your thoughts, your circumstances, your income, and your destiny. Let these final declarations become your unbreakable oath, spoken with the power that reshapes reality. I will never again be a slave to any person, institution, or circumstance. I was born to command wealth, not to work until death claims me. Now walk forward, speak with authority, build with persistence. Live not as the person the world tried to make you, but as the person you were always meant to become. This is your beginning. This is your freedom. This is your new law.